lots of my first sessions were just completely verbal. There was just really deep inner journeys and meditations and traveling, kind of like my dreams, but there was not much body work. There was not much understanding of how to take people into catharsis, because I also hadn't taken myself. I didn't touch on anger work until 2021. I just cried all the way through my emotional release training. I heard people being angry and I was like in a session like, wow, I wonder how it would be to feel that energy to scream or to yell. Like, and now look at me.
That's all we're doing in the end, is trying to move towards authenticity, moving towards that. And that's the most healing thing that you can do as well. Healing is not separate from life. In life, you try to be as authentic as possible, because what's more amazing than being authentic, than being fully yourself and knowing what that means. And in the sessions, we're doing the same thing. Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Bypassers podcast, today with Ashley and me, Jannick. And we talked about a very important topic dear to our hearts, the Emotional Release Academy Level 1 training that we started 3 weeks ago in this episode. We talked about what our students ran into in those first weeks, what kind of challenges there were, how Ashley experienced the first weeks of the teachings. And we are actually very, very excited. It's a big milestone for us to having started that. And we also talked about the retreat that's coming up, where Ashley and I will be space holding together. And obviously, there were some very nice nuggets and wisdom drops and goosebump moments in there as well, in the way we translated how the sessions that we give in the emotional release work actually translate into real life change and real life healing, this big work, healing. So enjoy the episode. It's a juicy one. And Ashley and I really enjoyed this chat so much. So hope you do as well, and see you on the other side. Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Bypassers podcast, today with me, Jannick, and Ashley.
Hello.
Hello. And I have new headphones, so now I look like a professional podcaster. Next week, I'll even have a new microphone. So we're upgrading, we're making this more professional every week. And I'm actually really excited to be here again, because I haven't been on an episode for quite a while. And a lot is happening in the background, because we have started the first training round. The first 3 weeks are over now of the Emotional Release Academy Level 1 training, where we teach our very own method of emotional release, how to facilitate emotional releases. And the training includes a 6-month program in Level 1, where our students get trained in this work to be able to facilitate sessions and guide sessions. And we will go a little bit deeper into what actually happened in those first 3 weeks in this episode. Also the challenges that our students run into, some of the topics that came up. If you were interested in this work, maybe not this training, maybe this training, but this somatic work and this healing work of going to the root cause of the symptoms and working with that, then this episode is definitely for you. And Ashley has been on a lot of teaching calls in the last weeks and has been meeting the group on a very intimate level. So diving right into it, Ashley, maybe first of all, how has it been for you these first 3 weeks of the journey? I mean, it was a big milestone for us to launch. So how did you experience that?
Yeah, super happy to have you back, Jannick. And honestly, like you say, it was not a hustle, but it kind of was a hustle to really get us started. And now that we've paused, it's like that breath of fresh air when like you had a big assignment to hand in, and now you're like, oh, okay, now it's just business as usual. Like we have the routine of the calls that we're following, and the teaching calls, embodiment calls, Q&As, practices, and starting to find our rhythm and our flow with the participants. So for me, it's been a big shift into stepping into a teacher. Jannick and Finn have had me on the phone at certain moments with this, I say like up-leveling of new role, new identity of what does it mean to no longer be just a supportive teacher, but like leading the way. And that's been, a really welcome challenge. And trying to let in more and more of the joy and receiving of also the insane messages that we've been getting from the students of feedback. Like, this is the safest I've ever felt with a group, and we've only had like 1.5 weeks at that point together. Some people have been with trainings for multiple years and didn't feel the level of safety that they do with this container. And it took me like a week or two to let that land, to really be like, okay, we're creating something here that's very, very special, and not just about theory, not just about the practicalities, but as we preach it, about human contact, about being honest, being truthful, and in turn creating that safety then inside this group for the clients that are going to come through. So yeah, I'm loving it. Like, I have been on a lot of the calls with it, and now I'm really happy that we have a varied curriculum, so it's not just me teaching. For the beginning concepts, there was a lot that I was teaching because it's the foundations. Like, we work in 3 weeks with a week off. So for this block, they've really been covering the basics: how to get into their heart, how to hold space, how to drop a client in and get their nervous system very relaxed, how to start equalizing, noticing what's happening in the body, and defining like what's actually okay. You've noticed, you've come to a place, you can sit with a difficult emotion. Let's get even deeper into defining it. So very simple things if you look at the long run of like what a whole session looks like, and still very foundational, to be honest. Even for people joining, like, we have quite a variety of people coming in. This group was a mixture of, let's say, half, right, Jannick? Around people who are already working with clients and people who are coming in because they actually just want to master their emotions and get better themselves. So that's also kind of how I joined my first training. Was like, I actually just want to feel healthy and feel happy. And that's where we've been at so far.
That's so beautiful. And I mean, we tell our students the same thing. Obviously, you can only go as deep as you've gone yourself. So it's beautiful. Also, to me, this is a great success. This is probably the most beautiful compliment we can get, is having students say, this is the safest I've ever felt in a group container. It's like, let that land. Wow. Because safety is the fuel for our work. It's the foundation. It's everything. It's the permission for things to come up. And it's obviously the most healing thing that can happen. And to me, it also shows how much this program is about connection as well, and about relationship. And that these topics that come up for our students, but also for their clients, they are all related to the relationship that these people have in their lives. And if we can create a container where we can have a new corrective experience of relationship, and people feel really safe to show up exactly the way that they are, then wow, that's a win. That's a big, big win. So I'm super happy and grateful for that. And I'd also like to say about what you shared personally with stepping into this role of the teacher. I think this is also expanding your, Carolyn Lovewell, the author of Existential King, she calls it havingness level. So expanding your havingness level means how much capacity do you have to step into that role and that person that you ultimately want to be, almost like your higher self. And you, Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of your higher self is being in this role of being like a master teacher, and giving your knowledge and your wisdom and your embodiment that you've experienced and gathered over the years on to our students, and to be able to create this ripple effect, in the world. And I think that's something really beautiful. And in order to step into that, having this level needs to be expanded. So a new identity almost is created. And that almost always comes with struggle and with death. And the dying process, as we know from our work, is such an essential part of growth and of healing. And I think this is just a beautiful example of why this work relates so much to life. It's not like you do it on the mat or you do it on the table, and then you go out in your life and you're a little bit better prepared. It's like a symbol, like what's happening in the processes with this work on the table is actually what's already also happening in life. And
sorry, Jannick, can you hear that in the background?
Yeah, I can hear that.
they've just started like demolishing work or something in the apartment below me.
Okay. So this is actually the perfect timing for what I was going to say, because now we can go into a position of being like, oh, this is wrong. This shouldn't be here. We want to have a professional podcast. Or we can be like, okay, like how to include what's happening in reality into our work and into what we're doing here, to be able to distance ourselves from this judgment of right and wrong, and being like, let's work with information. Let's listen. Let's learn to deeply listen to reality and see what it has to say. And this is also what we've been talking about a little bit before this podcast, Ash, of you hosting this retreat that's coming up now. And there are also topics, obviously, when you prepare a retreat. Everybody who's done this before knows this is like a huge thing, involves a lot of doing things at the same time and thinking about a lot of organizational stuff, that you bring this in, and it's like, oh, we've opened this portal, let's listen to reality. What is it bringing in? What can we listen to, and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to roll with the demolishing sounds that just started. Lovely. There's a part of me that's like, I wish my neighbors would like communicate that they have this planned, because people work from home. So I'm just allowing that part to be there. And yeah, I will still go through with this. Like, it's okay. It's okay. What you said about opening a container, it doesn't matter if it's like I've put on sometimes a workshop, or it's a whole academy level 1 training, or it's the retreat coming up. There is always the lessons of the people that you're teaching. You also have to go through yourself. And the imposter syndrome, which has been coming up in a lot of the students. The first week I was like, can I do this? Am I at the level? And all of these doubts that arise, like they go in different waves. It's like, okay, I've just gone a couple onion layers deeper than when I first started the training, but they will always naturally come up. And again, it's about welcoming them, that it's not wrong. And I remember I called Finn after one of the first calls that I was teaching, and I was like, I'm not sure if am I doing this enough? Am I doing it well enough? Even though on the calls people are like, wow, so much is moving, and I'm just super critical of my own teaching style. And he was like, actually, to be honest, if you were not calling me asking about this and wondering if you're doing it good enough, then I'd be concerned about you teaching, because you clearly care enough to be reflective, you care enough to want to improve, to take feedback. And what else would you not want from a teacher? And for me, that's also been a big shift in this process, because a lot of my experience came from just giving hundreds and hundreds of sessions. It's not like, okay, I just assume I'm some guru and I'm some teacher who knows it all. And for me, it was trying to translate what comes very naturally now in the routine of giving a session, and noticing these little messages that come through of what to focus on, how to translate that into a method and into teaching and into classes. That's been a fun challenge for me to try to communicate what is intuition and what's just come through pattern recognition to people who are quite fresh. And yeah, that was a lot for the first week.
I can imagine. Totally. And I agree with Finn. It's so much about being real, and you really embody that for me as a teacher. You really bring in this realness and this authenticity, and you don't try to like put on a mask so that the students think, oh yeah, Ashley knows everything. If you know something, you will say that, and if you don't know something, you also are not ashamed to say that as well. And on this level of realness, we can really meet with the students as well. And obviously, at the same time, you are very, very experienced. So there's no need at all. I think you shared this with me as well. You were like, oh, this is probably one of the first times where I don't feel imposter syndrome, because I just know stuff. Like, I've done so many sessions. It's just like, you can't even like attack me there almost, because there's nothing really to attack. Obviously, when like methodology and like how to teach, that's a new aspect, and that's a skill that you build over time and a muscle. But just the wisdom and the knowledge, it's just there. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'd say also coming up with this retreat, and what progressively is still my learning aspect, is the channeling of wisdom in the moment. Like, I can write really good scripts and I can reflect and talk about in a casual conversation, but when it comes to like doing a presentation or trying to communicate all of the scientific facts in the right way, in a way that covers the basis for somebody who's more intuitive and also more mind-based and trying to keep everyone happy in that aspect. That's what I'm navigating at the moment. Like, how do you keep everyone happy? The visual learners, the auditory learners, the kinesthetic learners, and the judgmental skeptics and the diehard fans. And there's a lot of those just different characters now in my field. And yeah, that will, as our community grows and we have more rounds and more trainings, then there's just different types of people coming through. And yeah, different level of projection that we start getting as teachers.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, totally. And this is maybe leads us to more of the challenges that our students have had in the first weeks. One of them is definitely what kind of clients do they attract, especially the people who are already working with clients. It's something, there's something very magical about being in this work and then the kind of people that you attract, because like you said, they are a reflection of the topics that you have gone through yourself. So it's not random. Your clients see something in you that you might have resolved, or you might just be on a different level, on a different layer of the onion, like you said. And so that's why you are a good person to guide them through their own process, because you've gone that path already. And that's also why I think it's a great question to ask, is if somebody approaches you and wants to work with you, it's like, why do you think I am the right person for you? What do you see in me? There's so much information in there, and it makes it more conscious. Because when you work in therapy, oftentimes you just get assigned a therapist, and you don't really know, the kind of relationship that's there. Maybe there is not even a very good relationship between you. And at least making it conscious, which unfortunately doesn't happen so much in therapy, and working with these projections and working with the relationship that you have would be great if that would be done. Unfortunately, it's not so much. And at the same time, the success of therapy is actually highly, highly dependent on the relationship that the client and the practitioner has. So that's, I think, one of the things that one of the questions that also came up in the first weeks was like, okay, I have this kind of clients, I have that kind of client, I'm struggling with this kind of client. And then also being able to learn like, why are you two coming together? Almost like, why is this client coming to you? What's there to learn for you and for your client?
Yeah, that was the biggest mirrors, like the clients that come through. And sometimes it's like I have some clients pop in that I view almost really at the beginning, like really even just making deep exhales can be triggering for them, of like making sounds. And then I really wonder, like, wow, like what's going on right now that's what's coming in my field, when I've also had people who are very ready to go into big processes. But it always relates back to periods of my life when my body is also just needing more rest. So it gives me clients that like need more time and more slowness, because I also need more slowness. And it's like a very good barometer of where my emotional world is, depending on what clients arise in. And we always joke about this, but you're basically getting paid for your own therapy in a way of like mirrors, reflections. A lot of the time I'm giving advice to my clients, or like we're talking about topics and I'm like, this is very relevant for my life right now. Okay.
Yes. Agreed.
So that's definitely been one of the challenges. And I think for the people who are very fresh, who've joined, like we have quite a few in the space that have never done any sessions. So especially the first practice call that we hosted. So every Thursday they come together and get assigned with a partner, and they go into a Zoom room and they have 2 hours actually really to go into practice sessions together. And there comes the little imposter inner critic, the little voice. It's like, wow, you've seen Ashley or Tim do a session and they just know what to do. And how will I ever get to that point? Maybe I'm not right for this work. I can't hold space. I won't be able to go as deep as they did. And I really love when people ask these questions, because then other people in the space are like, oh, I also had the same thought. I also had the same thought. And the Q&A calls are so juicy for that, because then you realize that there's no unique experience. Like you thought of something, I guarantee another human being has also thought it or felt it. So that really helps to like reassure them and I mean, heck, if you'd seen the first 20 sessions I ever gave, like you ask those people, I feel like they'd have come back for a session now and be like, whoa, that's so different now.
Yeah.
Like lots of my first sessions were just completely verbal. There was just really deep inner journeys and meditations and traveling, kind of like my dreams, but there was not much body work. There was not much understanding of how to take people into catharsis, because I also hadn't taken myself into catharsis at that point. So it totally makes sense. I didn't touch on anger work until 2021. I just cried all the way through my emotional release training. I heard people being angry, and I was like in a session, like, wow, I wonder how it would be to feel that energy to scream or to yell. Like, and now look at me.
Look
So
at your Instagram.
yeah, it definitely it just takes time, and that's something that I mean I love. We have the 6 months with the group and beyond. Like we have the level 2 coming up next year, but it just yeah, if these shifts are happening after just 2.5 weeks together, then seeing what 6 months will do, seeing what the year after the training will do for them. I personally didn't start giving sessions until 9 months after I had my certificate. Like I had to go through my own healing, my depression, to be able to feel like I could hold space for people. And then it just started snowballing. And then I suddenly was doing anger, and suddenly we're here. And that's only in what, 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's really just that having trust in not just the process, but trust in the process in the session. Can I trust that when I have no idea what to do next, I can just be in my heart state and listen and just see what my intuition wants to bring? And there's been some beautiful moments of even beginner people in this last weeks having these intuitive moments of taking their client somewhere with a visualization or with a certain question that wasn't on the script but actually was the perfect question to ask, or partners being paired up who seem to have the same topic, and we just let the universe assign them randomly. So there's a lot of magic happening when people start to get out of their heads and into their hearts. And I'd say that's been the biggest learning of the 3 weeks for them is, yeah, being present, letting the ego go.
Wow, I have goosebumps. That was so beautiful. Exactly right. Exactly right. Because everybody speaks about confidence and wants to feel very confident, knowing exactly what to do when. And this is all the mind coming in, wanting a method, a strategy, a plan. And what you just said is so beautiful. This comes in a different way. Like the confidence comes in a different way than you think. It's not yours. It's not yours. You give yourself to your intuition, or some people might say to God, or to the Great Spirit, or whatever you want to call it. You give yourself away, and then clarity arises, and it's never yours to claim it. And through that, dropping into that heart state that we also practice, like you said, this clarity comes in, and then all of a sudden but it's a knowing arising. Basically, you were doing, and afterwards you're like, I have no idea why I did that or why I said that, but my client just reflected to me that this was the perfect thing at the perfect time.
Yeah. I've also enjoyed that we have a few people who are very experienced with certain modalities, in particular IFS. I mean, we also harp on about parts work all the time, especially on this podcast. And actually, a few people from this podcast listening joined the training. So they definitely heard us going on about it. And what I love is that there is this big, this like the phrase around like leave your ego at the door, and like anything that you knew beforehand, any systems, any ways to guide people into a reflection or a release. For example, with IFS, they're so tempted to like, yeah, but I know I have this option, like I could get them to do parts dialogue now. It's like, no, we're just going with breathing. We're just going down to the simplicity. And that's been when they could really have the chance to put aside their knowledge for now and just come and trust in the foundational basics that we're trying to build up. And then knowing that at the end of this, there comes the blending of the two again. Like we had a colleague, James, who is one of the elders in emotional release, and he was also at your training, Jannick, who's like in his 70s. Like he's been doing emotional release for 40 plus years.
What a legend.
He's like, he has his own modality. He has his own way of working. And when he came to the training, the first day or so, he's like, it's so hard to switch off what I know and to try to come into trusting this process when I know this one also works. And after about a day, he could indeed like separate the two and then, yeah, just see where the magic is. And I actually had this experience at the possibility management training, because there we were guiding people into emotional healing process, which is sitting, eyes open, talking directly. There's no logging in, there's no regulation of nervous system. It's just push, 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 go, go, go. And it takes 3 to 5 minutes maximum to clear through actually an old emotional topic. And for me, I would be like, okay, can you let that be there? And they're like, no, Ashley, go. And I was like, I've never done this before. And it feels so weird to go against what I know about nervous system regulation and trusting the person's body. But I was like, okay, let me just try it once. Let me just like park that part of my brain that finds safety in that context of that modality, which is what we also teach, and just see what I can find in this. And there was some magic in there. And it gave me new insights that I don't always need to go through a whole session to guide someone. In particular, if you're like talking like in a coaching intake, or it's the beginning of a session without having gone on the table, that now also in sharing circles, I have this tool that can go straight to the point of an emotion without having to go to a full experience of a session. And I wouldn't have had that experience if I hadn't shut my ego down for a second and pushed through the resistance that was like, no, 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 we're safe here. We're safe with emotional release. And we know how it works to be laying down. And that also required the facilitators kind of yelling at me to move through that.
Wow.
So I'm appreciative of them doing it, but it was, there was a very angry part of me that's like, no, this is damaging.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Yeah, they have years of experience with this, and it's a skill to be able to trust, and like you said, put your ego to the side and be like, I came here to learn, and so let's be open and learn this new method and trust, and then afterwards I can judge again. But
exactly,
for now,
you can decide after if it's for you.
Exactly.
But like, if you can't be open to learn it, then you can't make that decision. Do I resonate with it or not? If you haven't fully let yourself immerse into it.
Yeah. Exactly. Like the legend Angelo said, who has been on this podcast. So if you haven't watched the episode, go and watch the entity extraction work that he does live on the podcast. He says, we can only see what you don't judge. And this is very beautiful. I will forever remember this from the level 3 training when he said that. So being open and obviously sticking to an old method that you know feels safe, and the mind is always seeking safety. Everything the mind is doing basically is seeking safety. It's somehow trying to create like a system to feel safe. And so it's natural. We don't judge that when people and students come into the training, and we want to raise awareness for it so that, actually some people say, the need to know is a trauma response. And yeah, on some level, that's true. I need to know the method. I need to know what to say next. I need to know. This is coming from fear in the body. And this is just a translation of the mind of that fear. Mm-hmm. So the translation of that feeling in the body, of the mind, is, I need to know. And then you release that, and then you're sitting with this feeling of fear all of a sudden, because you don't have that translation anymore that keeps you safe. And then you're like, oh, can I sit with this fear of not knowing? Oh, yes, I can. Oh, actually, it's safe to feel that fear. I'm not dying, even though my nervous system might have thought it's dying. And just one last thing. This is one of the disadvantages, or of the potential disadvantages of the parts work, is that it's not somatic enough. So I love what you shared earlier, Ashley, that no, we're not going into the mind. We're not going into dialogue right now. It can be very mental. We are staying with the somatics of it, so that later on you can do somatic IFS, but you can only do that if for now you leave aside the knowledge and you just stay with what's present in the body.
Yeah. And what you're talking about of this, like the ego safety, that training I went to is called Expand the Box, because it's literally about this box that you are in of like rules, beliefs, values, comfort, conditioning, traumas. Like I was in that box in that moment of like, no, but I'm in my neo-emotional release box. Yeah, I know this is what I believe. And no, you shouldn't push people past certain limits because that's what I've been told is a rule. and I have a fear of pushing people into re-traumatization. Like all of this was what was present in my box. And the whole process of that was to go into the liquid state to like shift and find a new shape for my box that has new possibilities and a different way of relating with myself and with others as a person and as a therapist. And what you said about the example of like the need to know is probably a lot of people we have in the sales process of getting them to join our training, because they're like, no, I need to know every lesson that's coming and every class that happens and the exact points of all of the curriculum. And there's some people who are like also coming to my retreats. They're like, I trust. I don't need to know. I trust that like whatever needs to be taught will be there and I'll just show up. And that two ends of the spectrum is quite common to encounter. That for me, when I've had to do phone calls with people who really need to know every detail, it's so draining. It's so exhausting because it's actually not the truth of what's being shared in that moment. Like, yes, we can talk about, is there a washing machine on site, or we can understand like what would happen if you didn't know all of this stuff, what emotion would be arising there, and what can we work on underneath. So
exactly. This is very beautifully said. It's almost like, are we compensating right now or are we processing right now?
Mm-hmm.
And we want to go, obviously, if there's safety present, we want to go into process. And this also relates to what you experienced there in the Expand the Box training. It's like, you know something, or for example, a nervous system regulation. And for some people, it's very important to learn that nervous system regulation. If you're over-regulated, dysregulated, you need to come back to this state of calm. And sometimes it's actually not what's necessary. Sometimes it's going into a lot of dysregulation and like almost like coming out and processing through what couldn't be processed this whole time. So what we see in a lot of people, especially clients coming from you, Ashley, that are not so easily able to go into anger, is they are never really resolving this topic. It's like I'm touching it and then I need to meditate again to come down, and I'm touching on it and then I need to meditate again, and it's just like, I'm constantly overwhelmed, but I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm doing my yoga, I'm doing my meditation, but what would actually help to not be constantly overwhelmed is to be like 100% overwhelmed for once. I'm like, obviously, quote unquote overwhelmed, 100% going into that emotion, and then afterwards going into regulation again. I think 100% emotion is even a lesson that you teach in the training.
Yeah. And I also wonder, like, there's going to be, as we go through the next decades, what a sentence to say, but there's always going to be trends of what is in fashion, in mental health, around still kind of avoiding emotions. Like I would say when I was working like 10 years ago in corporate, it was about mindfulness. Like, yes, let's be very mindful, and lots of reflection and lots of journaling and that aspect. And now it's like, then meditation was very big. And now it's the last couple of years, like nervous system regulation is like everywhere. Even somatic work, even though like somatic basically just means the body. So it's like, cool.
Working with the body, working with progress.
I'm a somatic body worker. Great. You're a body worker. Lovely. So what I bring into that, because we talked about 100% emotions, is that the realistically, embodiment and somatic work just means using your fucking body. That's like your facial expressions, that's your sounds, your vocalizations, the ability to speak, the ability to move your body in ways that are not just rigid, like going to the gym and doing one running movement, like fluid movement, expressive, linked to the different emotions. And 2 weeks ago, I taught the embodiment class, the first one that we had. Like, we have different types. We have some that are movement based, which a lot of the ones I'm teaching, and some more sitting based, which Tim Jannick will also be guiding through different topics. And in this class, we focused on the embodiment of the 7 core emotions. So anger, sadness, fear, joy, disgust, excitement, and sexuality. Like having a space also in a group to go into what would 100% expression of that look like for 2 minutes, like to really push, where's my limits with disgust? Oh, even I feel a lot of shame expressing this emotion. And for every person on the call, it's such an interesting experiment to see where the blockages are. And it's often emotions they're quite surprised. Like I would say on average, fear is an emotion that people find very difficult to understand how to go into an expression of, because I would say you can split fear into existential fear, like I'm being chased by a robber, and anxiety fear, which is like worrying and the stress of overthinking. So for a lot of people, they're more used to the anxiety, which is an inhibiting emotion. It's not the core. And if you come to the true fear emotion underneath, we were bringing playfulness in of like, okay, well, think of something you're maybe afraid of. For me, it's bees and wasps. I have no logical reaction to how I react to bees and wasps. Maybe I've never been stung. Maybe I'm actually just allergic and my body is running me away. Like I have no control. So I was like, imagine you're walking, there's a mouse chasing you, or like something that involves like screaming like a little princess, like ee, ooh, ah, or like you're in a horror movie and you need to do like a really big scream, like you just walked in on like a murder scene or something. And that these exercises are quite acting based, like a lot of the emotional release work to help people push their limits of where their expression is comes from acting and improv classes. And that methodology of like actors also are very emotionally flexible because they have to be able to open up their crown to invite in an emotion, to express it and let it leave and not have it leave residue. And to do that, they have to have gone through intense emotional processes. And yeah, we have a couple of actors who were on the team with me before, and they were like, yeah, this is literally what we did in acting school, like the weird moving around, being weird, and also brings in some playfulness as well. So yeah, this is the kind of work that also I do in my own workshops and stuff, but it's just so fun and I think a bit surprising because people assume they're just coming to learn and sit at a laptop and guide people. Here's step 1, go in the body. Step 2, breathe. I'm like, yeah, you have to show them how to do that emotion. And they're learning that. I've had a couple in the Q&A call. They're like, I get it now. The louder I make a sound, the louder the client can make the sound. And that your client very rarely, maybe 1% of cases will come in and be expressing more than you. They need to know like, wow, if I make a sound of anger, that's how loud I can go because my therapist has just shown me that. But they're not going to know if you don't lead by example.
Yes, 100%. It's about giving permission.
Mm-hmm.
Giving permission for that. Yeah, it's a bit side.
That's a joke amongst our friends from our friend Joaquin because he has a beautiful Spanish Argentinian accent and he always says like asking for permission, and it's just I love it.
We always hear your voice, Joaquin, when if you're listening to this when we say permission. Yeah, and giving permission is safety. So I've also been co-facilitating on Tantra retreats as well, where we've shown demos, and the things you show in the demos is what you invite into the space, and that then you give permission for your participants or clients to go into as well. And like we said in the beginning, it's all about safety, and there's shame barriers, there are guilt barriers that are preventing you from going to certain places. And by creating the safety, oh, this is okay in this space, this is invited in this space, they feel safe, and it's like, oh, okay, I can do that. Because all the shame and guilt they are emotions that are based on group settings, like people coming together, being in connection and figuring out what's allowed here, what's allowed in this society, what's allowed in this group container, on this retreat, or on this training at the Emotional Release Academy, what's allowed, what's okay and what's not okay. And if you do this, you create this container of radical unshaming of going into these emotions and processes. The nervous system feels really safe to be like, oh, here it's allowed to be like that. Wow. Nice. Okay. So there are no barriers whenever I have to. It's not like you have to go into that, but whenever you feel like you have to, you have permission. And so this gives you the ability to be authentic. It's an invitation. And that's all we're doing in the end is trying to move towards authenticity, moving towards that. And that's the most healing thing that you can do as well. Healing is not separate from life. In life, you try to be as authentic as possible, because what's more amazing than being authentic, than being fully yourself and knowing what that means. And in the sessions, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, and if you go, thank you for that. I'm like really loving our conversation today. If you go even like slightly bigger perspective now, like we talked about the retreat and we talked about also for the training, and I really feel that that's what's bringing in this humanness to it. Like I mean, Yannick's going to come space hold at my retreat in 2 days. We're going to be together in person after doing this, and he'll also see there, like, for myself, and if any of the teachers or co-hosts join, whenever an emotional exercise is introduced, it is demonstrated by one of the team members. It's not just taught. It's like, we're not demonstrating also just for performance. Like, it's actually, I'm like, great, I get some therapy this weekend because there's topics coming up. So then I can use that in the demos to actually also move through a process myself. And that's something that in previous trainings I've missed sometimes, is like the humanness of the teachers, or the presence even of people preaching embodiment and preaching to be authentic, but people not seeing that. And I do feel that that's something radically different in this space that we're creating. And I mean, I think that's just a byproduct. We're four friends creating a training. We're preaching about being real, and being real in the meantime, and being honest about dynamics happening. And I think that the fact that the podcast also was going for a year before we even launched the training just has a whole different resonance to it. And I love that.
Yeah, me too. Wow. It's really so much about genuine connection, real relationship. So we know each other for some years now, and we are in for the long run. Like, it's not like, oh, we come together and it's like, okay, let's do this together and let's see what's happening. And it's like surface level. And I'm not saying, when you do a business, you have to have that relationship. But in our case, the business is about that. And it's also missing in a lot of places for like in other companies that also work in this space, that there is like a teaching, but it's not fully embodied, because when you look at the relationships of those people who are preaching and who are teaching, that's where the real gist is. This is where you actually see almost like a reflection of the maturity. And it's not about, do you have a perfect relationship or not? It's more about, do you own that? And how much awareness is there in the relationships that you have? And it's unfortunately, it's very rare that people feel like really like aware and safe of their relational patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a big advocate of making that conscious also as part of the training, and involving all relationships. So also you and me, we have a relationship, and we bring that into the container, and we're not hiding it or acting as if it doesn't exist. Obviously, it's always there's times where it is allowed to be present, and other times where it's not.
Yeah.
That's very natural. You need to create a container in order to to teach people. You can't always just be real and communicate everything that's coming up. Sometimes you have to suppress. But the difference between repression and suppression is that suppression is conscious. So you're like, oh, there's something coming up right now, a conflict, but I don't need to address that right now. That's also maturity. But later, after this call, I can talk to Ashley and be like, hey, this came up for me. Can we give it some space when the time is right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a beautiful way of dealing with these relational things.
Yeah. And I was just doing some mental maths. I think I've only, in reality, spent like less than 14 days in person with you in the whole of our friendship. Like, it also for me, it feels so beautiful that so much can happen online. And we were doing the sharing call with the students 2 days ago, and I was just sat there like, wow, maybe even just like 7-8 years ago, people weren't using Zoom so much, and that these connections wouldn't be happening. And I had even though it's a lot of laptop time in this day and age, but there's so much connection and so much depth that can be reached with people through a screen.
Yes.
Yeah,
I feel like I know you so well. We've gone through like very deep emotional processes together. And yeah, some of them were in person, and probably they built the basis and the foundation for it. I think if it's like the foundation is online, maybe it's a bit harder. But if you get to spend some intimate time on a retreat together, go through some processes, having some conversations and stuff like that, then you have almost like a basis. You know how you feel in the presence of that person, and then continuing and expanding that connection online is very much possible. And I think, I really feel connected to you, since we are working a lot together and we're having a lot of intimate private conversations as well. even though, like you said, we've not seen each other so much in person. So
Yeah,
another reason why I'm looking forward so much to the retreat.
Yeah, I literally get to give you a hug tomorrow for the first time in 1 year. It's been a whole year since I've seen you in person.
Wow.
It's crazy. So yeah, in a couple of weeks, we'll have some beautiful insights also from the emotional alchemy retreat that Jannick's going to be joining me for. And I'm going to do a little plug that if you are a woman who wants to work on her anger in the end of October, then my women's anger alchemy retreat, also happening in the Netherlands, still has some spaces. So we'll add it to the footnotes of this episode as well.
Yes, do it.
Yeah, it's going to be the last alchemy retreat for a while, because now next year we'll be focusing on the era trainings. So I feel like I will only be doing a women's one next winter, and probably the rest of the time focusing on the level 2, which we will bring in more info end of August for you all.
So exciting. We've been workshopping.
Yeah.
And we're so excited for this. Level 2 is, wow.
For those who don't know, level 2 is the in-person training / experiential retreat, which, we'll be obviously learning body work, but having your own emotional processes. And it's really a beautiful marriage between learning the body work, but also connecting in person and receiving powerful sessions from your fellow cohort. And so if you're curious about this, our next cohort for the online begins in January, and you have to do the level 1 to be able to attend level 2. So that would be the last chance for the first round next year.
Yes.
And everything is in the footnotes for how to schedule a call, for getting the ball rolling.
We should get me too. And now that you're talking about the call, because everyone gets to have a free clarity call with Hugo, our beloved Hugo, I think we should have him on the podcast once and really share about the conversations there that he's having with potential clients, and also the clients that signed up now. Because almost no one has signed up without talking to Hugo before, except for the people who talked to you, Ashley, in the clarity call. And so he's our portal opener for many of our students, and he's very experienced.
I love that. Maybe on one of the weeks we're all on vacations, you can interview Hugo.
And yeah, I'd love to interview him.
Cool.
Very nice. I think it's a wrap, and it's been such a insightful conversation today. A nice mix of both information about the training and some of the challenges there, but also personal processes, the retreat, and obviously we can't have an episode without wisdom drops and goosebumps moments as well.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And I'll see you on the other side of my vacation retreat time.
Yes, me too. See you on the other side. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.